Hey everyone, today we wanted to go over our decision process for choosing a contractor to do the renovations on the house. We talked to about 4 contractors and all of them had pros and cons, but we made a decision and we wanted to share with you a little bit about each one of the options.
Yeah, and so when we bought the house, I think we kind of had this fantasy or this idea that it just needed some paint and a plumber and electrician, and we were just going to move right in.
Yeah.
And then we got down here and realized that it needed a little bit more work than we anticipated, and so that kind of began the journey of looking for contractors, architects to kind of come in, give us some thoughts and ideas. And there were really 3 options that we were considering when we were thinking about what we were going to do, and they all ranged from
So the first one would have been like just getting the basics up and running, like getting the water tanks cleaned out and the water running clean, getting hot water, because the house has 2 water heaters right now and neither one of them are working. Getting appliances, basic appliances, a washing machine, a range, and a fridge.
And that probably would have been about $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah,
US dollars.
Yeah, maybe less.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And that, like, the scope of that work would have kind of been like us a little bit more hands-on, like us actually getting plumbers and getting, and we are not very fluent in Spanish, almost non-existent, and so that would have been getting better. Yeah, we are taking classes, but that would have been a challenge for us. Because one, we don't speak the language very well, and trying to communicate what we would like a plumber or electrician to do could have posed a bigger problem for us than it was. Obviously, it was nice that it's not very, that would have been the least expensive option.
Way under budget for getting the house going. Yeah.
But we would have just been, kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, it felt like, so that would have kept the existing electrical and plumbing. Currently, none of the outlets work upstairs. The bathrooms are in, some of them are better than others, but none of them are great. But they're okay.
The one bathroom has the discolored tiles where they had already done some plumbing work. And I think that's in 2 of the bathrooms.
So anyway, we felt like, like at any moment things could go wrong and we could be kind of doing more repairs, and it would be kind of unpredictable when something might come up. Then option 2.
Well, and also with option 1 though, we kind of had thought like we would have been doing a lot of the work ourselves. Like we thought we would do a lot of the painting ourselves, and a lot of the kind of cosmetic stuff ourselves.
Cleanup, yeah.
Like taking down some of the trees ourselves, a little bit more yard work, and that kind of stuff is the relatively more affordable stuff to actually have done here.
Yeah, and even just we trimmed some trees, and it felt like, now what do we do with all the debris from trimming the trees? It seems like a small thing. It would have been a tiny thing at home, but here, it became kind of an issue, and we didn't
because
know
they
how
don't
to
have
handle it.
Trash service like we do.
Yeah, it's a private trash service, and you need to contract with somebody, and you have to call them, and you have to speak Spanish to call them,
and then you also have to, if you set more than 2 bags out at the road each pickup, you actually have to pay additional,
a little extra
each time. And if you're not home to pay them, they will not pick it up.
Yeah.
And so that was, and plus, at that time when we cut that tree, it was like 95 or something like that.
It was hot.
It was hot.
Anyway, that option started to seem kind of unmanageable for us. So then option 2 which so we talked to different contractors, and they kind of presented different products. Like each one had kind of his own level of how extensively he thought the house should be renovated. And I would say option 2, there was a great choice for that, a contractor that we really liked.
You know what, Pedro?
Yeah. And he presented a semi-detailed quote. It did have some detail, but not a ton. And it was kind of a, update your existing plumbing, get everything working well, update your existing wiring and get all that functional.
Mm-hmm.
The current wiring is kind of hodgepodge. It's been added on to over the years. There are little breakers around the house where they've added things. So they added a breaker in the wall. And the original panel has fuses in it. It doesn't even have breakers in there. It's all corroded. And then the wiring is not grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And then the water supply lines are a little bit of everything going on.
With that option, we were adding some air conditioning, but not updating any of the windows or any of that kind of stuff. And so the house would have still just been very inefficient. And
it would have updated the bathrooms. But another thing about that quote is it lacked the specificity. Like, he was like, well, I'll do anything you want in the bathrooms. Just tell me what you want it to look like and I'll make it look that way. And that felt a little bit
unpredictable.
It felt a little too loose. Like,
yeah.
Well, will you really do just about anything we want? Or is it going to be an upcharge when we say that's what we had in mind? Because what you have in mind for an updated bathroom might be different than what we have in mind. Super nice guy. Seemed really trustworthy.
Yeah, I liked him.
But it just felt like we were kind of taking a leap of faith if we went with that.
Yeah.
And that also still left us with potential for, and that was replacing all the floors and cosmetically redoing all the bathrooms and updating the plumbing, but there was still going to be some old plumbing under the floors.
Yeah.
And old electrical in the walls.
So it limits any kind of future upgrades to those systems.
Yeah.
Without taking all that back apart.
And if we later had to redo the electrical completely, if there was a major problem or plumbing, we could be tearing up new floors, new walls, new finishes, and that seemed... The good thing about that plan was that it was on budget at around...
Oh yeah, so let's tell them what our budget was.
So we were at like a million pesos, which is 50, depending on the exchange rate, 50, 55, 60.
60, yeah.
In there, $1,000. And that felt pretty comfortable.
It felt manageable.
Yeah, that felt like a good amount to spend. Like we could swing that and not really feel strapped.
Well, that's what we had. That's what we had planned to spend, was about that. And now, if we wanted to do everything that we wanted to do, it was going to cost us a little bit more. And with Pedro's No, you
go ahead.
With Pedro's option, it wasn't very detailed. And so, he did say a couple times, oh, well, if you choose an upgrade from what I've quoted, like for example, he had certain ceiling fans, and he's like, oh, you're gonna go and pick out your ceiling fan, but if it costs more than what I've put into the budget, then you'll just pay the difference. Well,
reasonable,
but he didn't put in the quote what
his allowance was.
Yeah, what his allowance was.
Yeah, for anything. I mean, he did end up telling us what ceiling fans he had spec'd, but there was no amounts for anything on there. He ended up telling us what he spec'd for tile, and we could find tile that we liked for that price. But
so
those were the specific things that we asked about. But otherwise, there was no detail about that kind of stuff in the quote.
And it didn't cover everything. So we share a wall with a neighbor, and we had asked if it could be taken up 1 meter, and he didn't put that into the quote because he felt like it would take our over what we had said our budget was. And I kind of feel like I'd rather have him give me a full quote for everything we had asked for, and kind of laid it out and just said like, hey, this is what you've asked for, and just say this is what...
Let us pair it
Yeah,
back.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that, and I kind of felt like that was a flaw in that budget.
To be clear, it's a shared privacy wall between the two houses, and the neighbor's house, I think, is slightly higher than ours. So like especially in our dining room at night when the lights are on, it feels like they're like, well, they literally are like 6 feet away in the dining room, and it felt like they were like looking right down into our dining room. So we do want to increase the height of the privacy wall between the houses. Then the next builder we talked to, or architect, was super highly regarded, like coffee table books of his work. Everybody in town
knew
that
who he was, or
has a really expensive house or is into architecture knew who he was. And a friend of ours said, you will end up with a house that could be an Architectural Digest if he does it. And so,
which sounded great.
Yeah, we didn't exactly know what to expect, but he came out and we started talking about budget, and didn't really get into his vision. Maybe we got to budget before we got to vision, and that kind of
dampened the mood.
Shortened the conversation. But
they were very gracious, though.
Very nice. And he said, like, I really can't touch this project for less than 3 million pesos, which is...
And at the time, we were still focused on the $1 million
Yeah, so it was 3 times the budget.
It was a little
And it was about what we paid for the house. So that's around $180,000 maybe.
85-ish, yeah, 185-ish.
Yeah, and the exchange rate has been moving around, so what things cost has been changing a little bit lately. Not dramatically.
No.
So
that's kind of how we got to option 3 then, because that, hearing him say 3 million and then having Pedro come in at $1 million but not have everything on our list.
Yeah.
We kind of had to check ourselves, and we came to the conclusion that $1 million pesos was not going to one, get us the house that we wanted, or get the house close to being functional.
Wasn't really going to get the infrastructure items taken care of, so that it was going to be relatively trouble-free long-term.
Exactly.
And then also do the cosmetic things, which we were pretty flexible on the cosmetics, but then once you're doing all the infrastructure and tearing everything apart to do the infrastructure, you're going to get new finishes anyway. So it's kind of like, do all of it.
Yeah, we really didn't want to kick electrical and plumbing issues down the road.
Yeah.
That's not something that I don't think we would deal well with. So option 3 then.
Yeah, option 3, it is completely removing the floor and the slab on the first level of the house to run completely new plumbing and electrical throughout the house.
And to correct the swells.
Yeah, and when they put in a new slab, it will obviously be level, which the current one is not.
So new windows. Updated carpentry. So
we are keeping like the closet doors, and they're going to get painted out. We're keeping some interior doors. That's about it, though.
Pretty much. So option 3 also is a complete redo of the kitchen, which we had not anticipated doing that. We had actually just talked about like living with it as is, because it is livable, but it is a little dated.
Well, and we thought that when you redo the whole house, the kitchen is going to go from looking a little bit frumpy to really terrible.
Looking really dated.
Part of a brand new house, basically. So
new kitchen,
4 new bathrooms, all new plumbing and electrical, all
pressurized and softened.
The water system will be pressurized. So normally, the existing system is gravity fed from a tank on the roof, and so
which is called a Tanaka.
Yeah, and so it's gonna have a pressure pump now, and then a water softener. The water is incredibly hard here, and it ruins plumbing fixtures really quickly. So it'll be nice to have softened water. Completely redo the pool, resurface the pool, pump and lighting and
a heater
and a well to fill the pool with.
and the heater may sound like a luxury, but the reason we are going with it, especially when you talk about temperatures around 90 degrees during the day.
Yeah, it sounds ridiculous to put a heater in.
Yeah, but the winter time, which is when we plan to primarily be here, it does get cooler at night, like around 60, and the water doesn't necessarily, it's not really hot enough for the water to actually heat up. So the water during the wintertime is actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so we actually wanted to enjoy it. So that's the reason we're opting for the heater on the pool.
Yeah, we won't use it all the time, but when we want to use the pool, we use the heater.
And option 3 also, when the rewire of the house has, they're also going ahead and giving us a connection to solar panels.
Yeah, it's going to be prepped for solar.
Prepped for solar panels.
Yeah.
We're not going with the solar panels right now. We want to kind of see what the electric bill actually looks like. But to give you an idea, they had quoted us 12 panels for 180,000 pesos, which is roughly about $10,000.
Right now.
Reasonable, and if the house ever became a full-time residence or anything else down the road, that may be an option. Or if we get our first couple electric bills, then it's astronomical.
Yeah, right now we'll be here primarily in the winter, and so we don't anticipate using a ton of air conditioning. So we'll probably use it, but it won't be like it won't be on full blast all the time. So hopefully the electrical.
So option 3 though is
reasonable.
Complete renovation.
All new, every light fixture, every light switch, every outlet, interior and exterior lighting.
And we're going with polished concrete floors, which we may or may not regret. So we like the look of the polished concrete floors aesthetically. However, we have been warned that they tend to stain if you don't keep them sealed. And he said that you would have to seal it every 2 to 3 years. Maybe less for us because it'll probably be lightly used, but we need to obviously keep that in mind. He had recommended going with ceramic tile. They use the larger ceramic tiles, and that would have been fine. But this is kind of our tropical dream house, and so we want the aesthetics of the house to kind of match our feel and vision for a tropical oasis. So option 3 though will obviously take longer, and
the quote is for 3 to 4 months, but that will include Christmas time, which probably is not going to be a super productive time.
Yeah, and so what I was also told by someone recently is that when you get a quote from someone for 3 to 4 months, we think 1 month is within 30 days, but someone told me that in their interpretation of it is it's working days. So it's 30 working days over 3 to 4. And so I guess that's how people tell you always double what they quote you. So we haven't actually gotten the actual contract yet to sign, and so we don't know what the language looks like, because if they quote you 4 months, there is like a built-in we can go 2 months past the deadline before like a daily penalty starts. So we've not gotten the contract yet to review that, but we'll give you an update on that and kind of share what the language looks like in the contract and what that process looks like. But we definitely wanted to kind of just give you an update on like how we came to this decision and how we're going to move forward. Was there anything else with option 3 though that we needed to share besides the budget?
I mean, there were some other little things that he included which are really nice, like the stairway is made out of cast concrete and it's a polished surface. It's a little worse for wear at being 50 or 60 years old, and he's going to clad that in travertine. Again, it looks reasonable now with the condition of the house, but his vision is kind of to make it all even and evenly updated, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and then also the back patio, which is off the kitchen, has like a a pony wall all the way around it and like an outdoor counter. He's actually demolishing the entire structure and is going to drop it down a step. So that way, because right now when it rains out there, water tends to come into the kitchen through that door because it's flush.
There's a drain on that patio, and when that gets a little full of leaves, water backs up and flows into the kitchen. So
and then once it's lower though, you'll also, it'll be an easier step into the backyard. Because right now it's probably
it's a high step, so that's why they have the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So once that's all done, so he's doing a little bit more than what we had anticipated, but he's the one who came highly recommended by our realtor, and a few other people have said that he's really good. And so it's almost of a leap of faith with decisions down here, because you kind of have to make decisions based off of what other people have told you, because there's not a really good database of information. Like, there are some like Google reviews, but for some companies, but that's not a widespread.
Not consistent.
Yeah, it's not widely used here. So you really have to go off of what people who you've met and know have told you. So, given all that, the budget for that one came in at so the budget for that one came in at 1.85 million pesos, which I think is about 105,000 with current exchange rate, somewhere around there. So definitely more than we had anticipated. However, the house will be completely done, and so we've retired early, and so any kind of decisions that we make, we need to be sure that they kind of fit with any kind of future issues, situations, or plans. And so one of our thoughts with going full-on renovation was that if we decided to sell the house down the road, it would be completely done. We wouldn't have to worry about bringing it up to the current sellers' standards or anything like that.
Yeah, we wouldn't have to improve it to put it on the market.
Exactly.
Also, one thing that we were mindful of is that the current market does support spending that amount of money on the renovation. There's in the neighborhood, there are houses. Almost all the houses are more expensive than ours, than what we paid for the house and what we'll spend on the renovation for a comparably sized house. And really, the ones that are more expensive aren't fully renovated. Yeah, they're not spectacular. Yeah. So we feel pretty confident that we could immediately turn around and sell the house for a substantial profit.
Sizable, yeah.
Yeah. So there are a lot of rundown, dated houses on the market. There are not a lot of fully renovated houses on the market, especially not in the price range that we'll be.
Or in like our neighborhood. Like you can go to the north side of Merida where there's mostly all new construction, but closer in, we're very close to the center of the city, and so it's harder to find newer renovated homes here.
Also, there are colonials in Centro that are fully renovated. The prices are pretty stratospheric. I mean, they're way more expensive for a much smaller house. I think we're confident that we can sell the house for much more than we'll have into it. So if money matters make us want to sell it later, we'll be in good shape.
So we can just consider all of our options.
Yeah.
Anything else that you think we need to mention about the actual plans, construction? We'll share with you more about the actual contract and what that looks like and our process, so that way if things go south down the road, you can learn from that, or if things go well, you'll see what we did to get there.
I think we should also share that when we got the quote for $1.8 million, we had a full-on melt. $1.8 million, 1.8 million pesos. We had a full-on meltdown for a few days, and we're completely flipped out about that price. And didn't know what to do, and then
our lives were falling apart for a weekend.
But then, we calmed down, reflected on it, and said, it's not that we can't do it. It's it wasn't what we were planning, and the plan evolved, and it still makes sense. And I think in the end, we'll be extremely happy with what we end up with.
Yeah, we'll have an incredible home for all of our family and friends to enjoy.
Yeah.
And if things take us in different directions, we'll be able to easily dispose of the house. But I think it's going to be a pretty kick.
House.
Yeah, exactly. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. And
yeah.
all right. Well,
See you soon.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.
Thanks for watching.